Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Katrina and I work in the Downing admissions team. Welcome to the Biological and Natural Sciences subject admissions webinar. We're really looking forward to this afternoon, and I've got with me Dr. Marta and Dr. Amy and Sonna, and they're going to be talking with me about biological and natural sciences at Cambridge. So first of all, I've got an introduction for you. So first of all, why are we running this webinar? Well, as I said, my name is Katrina and I'm part of the admissions team, and my role is to help students like yourself understand the admissions process to Cambridge, and hopefully some of you will be joining us in a couple of years' time. So the timetable for today then, I'm going to talk through the admissions process and what you need to do through the application. Then I'm going to pass over to Marta and to Amy, and they're going to talk to you about studying biological and natural sciences at Cambridge. And then I'm going to pass over to Sonna, who's one of our current students, and she's going to talk about what studying natural sciences at Cambridge is like. So a few things to remember then throughout the webinar. If you could please keep your mics and cameras off, they should already be off, but do keep an eye on that. We'll try and answer as many questions as we can, and you should see at the bottom of your screen a Q&A box. So you can put any questions in there that you have for us, and you can do that throughout the talks. So please be doing that, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. And then you also should be able to see answered questions, so we can also type answers to questions as well as saving them for the Q&A at the end. And also you should see a raise hand button. If you can hear me, can you press the raise hand button so I know that it's working for you all? Beautiful, thank you. That's all come up on my screen, so you can click it off now. So first of all, what is Downing College? So we're organising the event today, and we're one of the 31 colleges in Cambridge, and there's a picture of our site there. So we were founded in 1800 by Sir George Downing. So we're part of the same, we were founded by the same family as that built Downing Street, which I'm sure we're all familiar with. And we have around 450 undergraduate students at Downing, so around a medium-sized college. And we take roughly 120 new students each year, and we do that for all subjects. And we were the 17th college to be founded out of the 31 at Cambridge. So there's a little bit of history for you there. So now I'm going to move on to the admissions process, the application process that you need to go through if you'd like to apply. So what am I going to cover? First of all, I'm going to talk about the role of the departments and the colleges, and kind of what are they responsible for. Then the admissions process itself, any admissions assessments that you need to sit, your personal statements, and then interviews as well. So about Cambridge then, if you come to Cambridge, when you're a student, you're part of the University of Cambridge, the department, so in this case natural sciences, and then the college, and obviously Downing is one of those, but any of the other 31 as well. But what are each of those responsible for? So the department then, they set the course content, so they set what they want you to be learning as students. And they'll teach you this through lectures, seminars, practicals, projects, kind of group work, anything like that is going to be set by the department. And they also set your assessments and exams as well. So if you are a student studying biological and natural sciences at Downing, or you are at Emmanuel or St John's, you're going to be doing the same course because it's set by your department. Obviously, you can tweak the course a little bit to match your interests, and Amy and Marta will be talking about that a little bit later. But other than that, you're going to be doing the same course and getting the same teaching. And then the university, they award the degrees. So you get a degree from the University of Cambridge, not from Downing College or one of the other colleges. And then the University Careers Advice Service is available to all students, no matter what department they are in or what college they're part of. So the colleges then, I've mentioned Downing already and a couple of other names. So the colleges actually submit and select the students. So you apply to a college at the beginning of your admissions process. So you need to choose one quite early on, which you would like to go to. And so the whole admissions process I'm going to talk you through happens within college. But when you actually join Cambridge and join a college, the college is there for your academic and your pastoral care, and you'll live in college most of the time as well. So you've got your Director of Studies who is going to meet up with you and talk to you about the course and how you're finding it. You've got a personal tutor who is someone in a different subject to you most of the time, so you can talk to them about issues you might be having in college or wider than your subject. And then a college nurse and college chaplain as well are available for your wellbeing. So within the college, there's the college accommodation, college dining facilities, recreation, sports, lots of things like that. But the only teaching that happens within college is something called supervisions, which are small group teaching sessions. So this will be you with an academic, and you'll sit down with them roughly once a week. It really depends on the subject and what year group you're in, but roughly once a week. And you'll sit down with them maybe 1-to-1 or 1-to-2, 1-to-3 in a small group and discuss the course, discuss how you're finding it. They might set you homework tasks and lots of things like that. And I know Sonna's going to talk to you a little bit more about how she's found the small group teachings. So the application process then, first of all, you need to choose your course. So hopefully hearing from Marta, Amy and Sonna today, it'll help you decide whether biological and natural sciences is the right course for you. Then you need to choose your college, and you can choose pretty much any of the 31 that are available. 2 of them are postgraduate colleges, so you can't apply to those as an undergraduate, and then a couple of them are women-only colleges. So that might not apply to you, and sometimes colleges don't offer every subject as well, so it's worth double checking, but most of them offer all the subjects, so you can pick from any of those, and Downing being one of them. And you can also make an open application, so if you're struggling to decide, you're really not sure, you can make an open application and you'll be randomly allocated to a college. Then you need to check admissions assessments and test registration deadlines. This is normally the middle of October, but do double check in case it is a different date. And you do need to sit a pre-assessment for natural sciences. And Marta's going to talk a little bit more about the details of that test later on. Then at Cambridge, we ask for the early entry deadline. So this is the middle of October, so we're early entry, and you need to have your UCAS form sent off to us, and we need to have received it by then. And that includes applying to your other 4 options as well. So you send off your whole application by the 15th of October. Then at Cambridge, we asked for something called an SAQ. This is nothing to worry about, it's just a questionnaire, because the UCAS form doesn't let us ask everything that we want to ask. So certain things it might ask are in your A-levels or your subjects, what modules are you doing? So we're aware of what you've been studying within biology, for example. And then check if there's any written work that needs to be submitted. For natural sciences, you do not need to submit any written work. And then the interviews happen in December, normally in the first 3 weeks. So if you do apply, make sure you are free in those 3 weeks to be able to come for an interview if you're invited. And we're going to talk a little bit more about those later. Then in January, the decisions will be made, so you'll either be given an offer from the college you applied to, an offer from a different college, or you won't have been successful, and everyone finds out on the same day in January. So what information do we use to assess your applications? There's a lot of stages there, and we use everything holistically. So we take into account everything that you tell us about yourself and all the different parts, and we will look at it as a whole, and we won't take anything into kind of look at it in isolation, because we're looking for your academic ability and your potential, and that might be shown more in some areas than others. So what are we actually looking for? As I've just been saying, it's your academic ability and your potential. We might be looking for subject requirements, so do make sure you've got the right subject requirements for the course. But the main things that we're looking at after that is your genuine interest in the course and that you're suitable, because you'll be studying natural sciences for 3 or 4 years, and we want to see your genuine motivation and enthusiasm for the course. We're not interested in any extracurricular activities that you've done that aren't relevant to your subject or any particular background or any particular school type. We're just interested in your academic ability and your potential. So our standard conditional offer then for natural sciences is 2 A stars and an A for A levels, or IB is 40 to 42 points with 776 in your higher levels. If you're studying any other qualifications like Scottish Highers, do look at the website and see what the conversion is. So your personal statements then, I thought I would touch on this briefly, as people do worry about their personal statement. So this is 4,000 characters or 47 lines of text, whichever one you hit first, and this is part of your UCAS application. And it's a chance for you to tell the university why you want to study that subject and why you'd be good at it. So it's the first opportunity we get to hear your kind of motivation and enthusiasm. And we would expect it to be about 2/3 subject-based, showing your academic ability, your potential, your motivation and suitability for the course. And that's what we're looking for in your personal statement. So as I said before, we're not interested in extracurricular activities that are not relevant to the course. What we are interested in is super-curricular activities. So you might have heard that term before, you might not. But I've put a few examples up there. This is not a definitive list, it's just a few examples of places you can go to find super-curricular activities. So super-curricular is academic learning outside of the classroom. So it's not stuff that you've been taught by your teachers in your school, it's things that you've gone home and researched for yourself. And that doesn't have to be just reading a big textbook, it can be looking at journal articles, listening to podcasts, listening to TED Talks, anything that is expanding your knowledge of the subject. And even just chatting with other people about it and explaining a new concept to them is super-curricular. So it's worth doing this and starting doing these sort of things early on. So successful personal statements then are going to give us specific examples and evidence of their interest and their achievements. And it's going to show us the super-curricular activities that you've done and things that you've done to show your interest beyond the school curriculum. And it should be 2/3 subject based, as I said before. And the main thing to think about is, why do you want to study that subject? And if you can write a really good personal statement showing why you want to study it, it also shows to you that you are making the right decision and you are really passionate about the course. Admissions assessments then. So for natural sciences there is an admissions assessment, and you sit this prior to any interviews, and this is normally done within school, but you need to double check where this will be taken. And this is not a pass-fail test. There isn't a set mark that we're looking at. As I said before, we are taking everything into account. And there are practice papers and specifications online. You can't register for these tests yourselves, you need your school to register you for them. And so do find the person in school who's kind of your UCAS coordinator. If you're unsure who that is, talk to your form tutor and they should be able to point you in the right direction, but hopefully you know who they are already. And make sure they know that you are wanting to apply to Oxford or Cambridge, because there's a few things the school need to do to help you along the way. And Marta's going to talk more about what's kind of in the test for natural sciences a little later on. So the interview then, obviously, is another thing that people worry about, and they happen within college. So you'll have 2 interviews within the college. done by academics, so people that might be teaching you, people who work within the college, and occasionally some people from other colleges as well. And they will be predominantly academic and subject based. They might ask you questions from your personal statement if there's things that they're particularly interested in, but they often are used to show you something new, so something you don't know about, and they want to see how you apply your existing knowledge to a new situation. So that's kind of the overview of how the interviews work. So what you can expect to potentially come up in the discussions, and it is worth saying that the interviews are a discussion, and some people actually enjoy their interviews because they're able to talk with people who are just as passionate about the subject as they are. So recent academic work may come up, any wider reading or work experience that you might have done, any visible issues relating to the subject in the wider world, so what's going on in the news that impacts your subject, any new scenarios they might give you and see how you apply that existing knowledge. And then occasionally you might be given some pre-reading or shown a graph or a problem or something like that and have to work it out. So there's a few different routes that they can take, and the two interviews will be different. So frequently asked questions then, we get asked in our admissions about gap years. You can take a gap year and you can apply for deferred entry when you apply, so you can still apply in year 13 and apply for a deferred entry. But do double check with the college that you apply to that they're happy for you to do that. And then extenuating circumstances. On the SAQ form that I mentioned earlier, you're able to put any extenuating circumstances. So if anything has impacted your education, please let us know, and we can take that into account when we're looking through your application. Obviously at the minute there's a lot going on and a lot impacting your education. The year 13s at the moment have been asked to keep a record of the support they've been getting from their school. So that might be a good thing to do, is to keep a record of the support that you've got from school at the moment and the different tasks that you've been doing. It's also a good time to start super-curricular activities as well. I know a lot of you are worried about the application for next year, given the situation that we're in. What I would say is at the moment we're not sure how it's going to play out, as all universities are in the same boat. We're unsure and we're waiting for guidance from the Universities UK and from the government. But what I would say is don't worry and just keep an eye out on the website for an update on how things are going to be run. But they should all be run the way that I've just described. So thank you all for listening. I'm going to hand over to Marta now, and she's going to talk to you a little bit more about the admissions process for natural sciences specifically.
Hi everyone, my name is Marta Correia and I'm one of the Natural Sciences Directors of Studies at Downing. So as Katrina said, I am one of the people who support students at Downing in terms of their academic background. So we would support you through your subject choices, for example, write your references when you move on, and are here to give you any sort of guidance you might need that is relevant to your academic work while at Cambridge. So I'm going to give you a little bit more information about the admissions process, specifically for natural sciences, biological. So perhaps I'll start with the personal statement, because that's the first thing that you will have to do in the application process. So you've already had some general guidance in terms of what we are looking for in the personal statement. But for natural sciences, people often ask us, what should you do if you're applying for natural sciences at Cambridge and for example, for biochemistry everywhere else? So how would you include information in the personal statement that is relevant for all of the courses you're applying to? So this is actually where the SAQ, the Supplementary Admissions Questionnaire, is relevant, because there is a section there for an extra personal statement specific to Cambridge that only us will see. So that would be, for example, your opportunity to tell us about why, while you are passionate in biochemistry, you feel that doing a course in natural sciences would be the right option for you. And this way you can still have a personal statement that focuses on whatever subject you're applying for at universities, and you have that space to give us a little bit of extra information. This is not compulsory, so you shouldn't feel that you have to add any extra information, only if you want to tell us specifically why natural sciences is the right choice for you. The other thing that the SAQ is important for is because this is the place where you will be able to tell us whether you wish to be considered on the biological or the physical natural sciences branch. This will affect, for example, the panel we put together to interview you. So it's quite important that you spend some time thinking about it. But if you're really not sure, if you're right down the middle, you might want to do biological subjects, but actually when you get here, it turns out you're more interested in the physical subjects, then it's absolutely fine. We'll sort it out at interview, and we will make sure that we explore the subjects you are studying at school, and that you won't be disadvantaged if you told us you were applying for natural sciences biological, and then in between the interview and submitting the application, you've changed your mind. So back to the personal statement. How will it be used? So we don't do any scoring of the personal statement itself, but as Katrina says, it can be used during interviews, for example, to give us a way of starting the interview, talking about something you told us in your personal statement that you are interested in. Maybe you've done some relevant work experience doing shadowing some researchers in a lab somewhere, and we might start off the interview asking you to tell us a little bit more about that, or maybe we'll ask you to tell us a little bit more about your any extended projects you've done at school. So just to, if you like, start the interview with a topic that you are comfortable with. So obviously that does mean that while we don't say for sure that we will talk about your personal statements in the interviews, we may talk about the content of your personal statements in the interview. So one thing we always advise applicants to do is to reread their personal statement just before they come up for the interviews, because, you know, in the 2 or 3 months between submitting the application and coming for the interviews, you may have forgotten exactly what you wrote there. Maybe you talked about a book that was very fresh in your mind at the time, but you've sort of forgotten what specifically made you so so interested at that specific point that you wanted to mention your personal statement. So just to make sure that anything in the personal statement you are comfortable talking about. But the key thing to remember, sort of moving on to interviews now, is that they will be subject interviews. So there will be academic interviews about your subject. So with natural sciences, that means you will usually have 2 separate interviews with 2 interviewers in each interview. And we will be asking you academic questions about a range of science subjects. So we could ask you about, for example, biology and chemistry in one interview, and then in the second interview we might ask you about a different aspect of biology, and give you a slightly more mathematical question, so calculation to work through, or a graph to look at and discuss, so something along those lines. But you shouldn't expect to be asked questions about why do you want to go to university or why Cambridge. So we will be very much focusing on your academic background and academic potential. So what usually happens in interviews is that we will start by asking you a question about something you've covered in school perhaps, or like I said before, perhaps something you mentioned in your personal statement. And we will guide you through increasingly complicated questions as we kind of move you away from what you already know, with the aim being trying to get to see how you think about new knowledge, how you assimilate new knowledge, and how you use it to answer unseen problems. So perhaps Sona can tell you a little bit about her experience at interview later on, but this is what we aim for. So the questions we'll be asking you will be nothing like a quiz. We don't want you to have a question at the tip of your, an answer at the tip of your tongue. so that you can give us a correct answer straight away. It's a lot more about the process. So we want to know your thinking process. We want to know what options you are considering. So it's very much a discussion and a conversation. So for example, if we ask you a question and you're not really sure how to get started, you should absolutely ask us for further information if the question wasn't clear, for example. Like I said, most of the time we won't have a right or wrong answer in mind. We are trying to see how you assimilate new information, how you process that information and use it to address those unseen problems. So a lot of the time students will come out of the interview thinking, oh, I had no idea what the answer was, and that's okay. And in fact, if you feel like you didn't know the answer to any of the questions you were asked, that probably means, you know, you got through quite a lot in the interview. So we actually got to the harder parts of the questions. So even students who are successful and who do extremely well in interviews sometimes come out thinking, oh, I wasn't so sure about that, and not feeling so confident. But try and remember that it's a discussion and it's about the process rather than just ticking boxes about right or wrong answers. So most colleges do subject interviews only. However, there are still a minority of colleges that do general interviews in addition to subject interviews. So when deciding which college to apply to, you should make sure you check the relevant information on their website to make sure you are aware if there is a general interview in addition to the subject interviews. So that's personal statements and interviews. So the other element of the admissions process that is quite important is the natural sciences admissions assessment. So as Katrina says, you need to register for this, or your school needs to register you for this, and you need to be registered by the application deadline, so by the 15th of October. And it's very much your responsibility to ensure that your school does this, and we won't be able to consider your application further if you are not registered by the deadline. In terms of format, the format for the natural sciences admissions assessment has actually changed slightly this year. So this year there will be 2 sections, each with an allocated time of 60 minutes. So section 1 is a multiple choice section, and these will be very short multiple choice questions. You get through quite a lot of them in those 60 minutes. And there is a compulsory section in mathematics, focusing on GCSE mathematics. And then you have to answer questions on a second subject from biology, chemistry, or physics, and you choose which of the 3 subjects you want to answer questions for. So the second section this year is also a multiple choice section, but they are extended multiple choice questions. So there are fewer of them and they are more in depth. So usually that means that there is quite a bit more thinking to do before you can get to your answer. And in this section, you have to choose a single subject to answer questions, and that will be either biology, chemistry, or physics. So for most people applying for the biological natural sciences route, we would expect people to answer the questions in either biology or chemistry. But like I said, if you actually feel that at the moment you're more comfortable with physics and you want to answer the physics questions, that's absolutely fine as well. So we have no requirements there. You should answer the questions that you feel best prepared to answer in that test. So in Downing, the natural science admissions assessment is the only assessment requirement for admissions. However, there are still 3 colleges that ask for you to sit an additional assessment at interview. Currently, that's Magdalen, St. John's College and Trinity. So again, when you decide which college to apply to, you do need to check the websites to make sure that you know what is going to be expected of you, because it does vary a little bit from college to college sometimes. So that's everything I wanted to say. So I'll hand over to Amy Milton, who will talk to you about course content, and happy to answer questions in the Q&A session later on.
Okay, thank you, Marta, and good afternoon, everyone. So I'll just take a few minutes to talk you through essentially what you can expect in terms of the course structure and the kind of teaching that's provided for you at Cambridge. And then Sona will be able to talk more about the actual experience of that when she speaks to you in a few minutes' time. A lot of this information and a lot more detailed information that I'm going to be able to give you is available on the course website. So if you would like specific details about aspects of any individual courses, then I recommend that you go and have a look there, but also I'm very willing to take questions in the Q&A at the end. So as Catriona said at the beginning, regardless of the college that you apply to, if you come to Cambridge as a natural sciences student, you will be going to the same lectures and the same practicals as all other natural science biological students within the university in your year. So the university provides teaching in the form of lectures and practicals, and it's the college's responsibility to provide supervisions. Now, the course itself is structured into two parts. So the first 2 years are known as Part 1A and 1B. And Part 1 tends to be quite a broad natural sciences course. And then Part 2 is the 3rd year, and that's a more specialised final year specialism. Some options do offer a 4th year as well, and that's known as Part 3. Those are relatively limited within biological arms of natural sciences. So biochemistry and systems biology both offer a 4th year, but the majority of subjects within biological natural sciences are 3-year BA courses. So for the first year, you take 4 different options, 3 of which are experimental sciences and 1 of which is mathematical. So this can either be the mathematical biology course or a mathematics course, which is also shared by the physical natural scientists. And we would be best placed to advise you as to which one of those courses to take when you come up to Cambridge and when we know what your other options are, as well as the maths that you've done up to this point in your academic career. So within the experimental subjects, they are still fairly broad within the biological sciences. So most of our students will take biology of cells. A very sort of large number will often take chemistry, which is kind of a bridging subject between the biological and the physical natural sciences. And then there are other more biological options as well, like physiology of organisms, evolution and behaviour, and then some that sort of tip more into the physical side, like material science or earth sciences. It's quite unusual for our students to take the full range of natural sciences courses, as in taking biology of cells, maths, physics and chemistry, because that is a very, very broad first year. It's not unheard of, but we do tend to find that the majority of our students will tend towards either biological or physical natural sciences, although some may then still include something like chemistry or perhaps something like earth sciences to give them sort of a little bit more diversity in that first year. The options that you choose in your first year will make a difference as to the options you can choose in your second year. So some of these are fairly obvious. If you're going to do physiology in your second year, you need to have done really physiology in your first year to have a proper preparation for that. For some other subjects, though, in the second year, they're introduced for the first time. So subjects like experimental psychology or history and philosophy of science don't appear within the first year, but are second year options that are available. So essentially, you can think of the first year as being extremely broad. And then in the second year, you narrow your options a little bit. You only take 3 experimental options in your second year. And then by your third year, you settle on for most people, one single subject that you are most interested in, and that's across the whole range of biological natural sciences, from genetics, pharmacology, pathology, neuroscience, psychology, biochemistry, whatever you're interested in. It's likely there is a course for you to be able to pursue that interest. Entry into part 2 is competitive. It's based on second year exam results, but that is something that we would be able to advise you on in more detail if you come up to Cambridge. So in terms of the other side of the university teaching provision, so that's practicals. The university provides practicals for pretty much all of the biological subjects. Obviously some of them are accepted, so history and philosophy of science of course doesn't have any practicals, but most other of the natural sciences subjects do. And those practicals are organised centrally by the university, and they take place according to sort of a standard timetable. So it's busy. You can expect to be very busy if you come to Cambridge as a natural scientist. In your first year, you would typically have 3 lectures for each of your 4 subjects each week, so that's 12 hours of lectures, plus labs. Now some of those can be quite long, so chemistry or biology of cells labs might be 5 or 6 hours long, and then on top of that you would also have supervision work, 1 supervision per week for each of your subjects, and then preparation time and time to consolidate the lecture material and so on in between. So it's a packed timetable. But most students, and Phil Soller will have more to say about this, but most students say they find it extremely stimulating and they really enjoy it, even though it is very, very busy. I'll just say a few words on supervisions and then I'll hand over to Sona. So supervisions are organised for you by the directors of studies in colleges for the first 2 years. So in Downing that would be Marta and myself. And essentially some of the supervisions will be given by the fellows of the college, and some supervisions will be organised by the fellows of the college with postdocs or graduate students who are knowledgeable about those courses. So you can look at the list of fellows for individual colleges, but you can't necessarily assume that those will be the people supervising you. The supervisions are small group discussions. They're typically in group sizes of 2 or 3 for natural sciences, and really there is an element of the interview that is somewhat reminiscent of supervision. So they are discussions, they are opportunities for you to ask questions about the material that you haven't understood, or to take that material and bits of that material that you're really interested in and to take that further. And that can, you can be discussing things with somebody who is an expert, in some cases the leading expert in that field on that topic. So they're a really, really nice opportunity to sort of dig deeper into things that you're interested in. The supervisions also provide you with an opportunity to get feedback on your written work. So you will be set work every week. The nature of the work will vary depending on the subject and the supervisor, but you will be given the opportunity to have constructive critical feedback and to allow yourself to kind of improve through the year. On top of that, some colleges, including Downing, also provide additional support if it's needed for things like essay writing skills and so on. And that, again, that is something that we could advise on if you come up to Cambridge. So that's sort of quite a broad overview. As I say, there's more detail on specific courses available on the website, and of course we can address anything in the Q&A at the end of the session. But for now, I'll hand over to Sona, who will give you the student perspective on what it's like to be a natural scientist.
First of all, hi, I'm Sona. I'm a second year biological natural sciences student at Downing. I'll tell you a little bit about my experiences studying natural sciences and also living in Cambridge, and just what it's like to be in Cambridge throughout the year. So a bit of background, I did 3 A-levels, biology, chemistry and maths. And when I was applying, I also did an EPQ actually, and when I was applying I did get asked about that during my interview, but for the most part it was all stuff that I had never really covered before. So as Amy and Marta said, it's just a discussion, just to see how you think and how you would do when you come to study in Cambridge. So to study natural sciences is how broad the degree is. So these are the modules that you can take in first year. In first year, I chose to take biology of cells, chemistry, physiology of organisms, and mathematical biology, which is kind of a classic biological and natural sciences combination. Mathematical biology is more statistics based, so for me that matched quite well with the biology subjects I wanted to do. And it allowed me to experience a range of things and decide what I was interested in, and I'm quite glad I did that, because when I applied to university as a whole, I tended to apply for biochemistry at my other of the 5 choices, and I imagined that I would want to specialise in third year in biochemistry. Actually, during my first year, taking the broad range of modules meant that I could experience and study things that I hadn't really studied before, and I ended up liking those so much that I'm now planning on specialising in zoology in third year and kind of looking at cell development. So in first year, as Amy mentioned, it was very busy. For each of the 4 modules, there were lectures 3 times a week, 1 supervision and 1 lab. So the supervisions were organised within college, and I was put in touch with supervisors, and we managed to arrange supervisions to look like this. I asked to put them on the Tuesday and Thursday just so that I would have a bit more free time at the weekend, and that's just how I wanted it, and it managed to work out like that, which was quite nice. And this is just scheduled contact hours, so you can see it's quite busy, but I did manage to fit a lot of things around that. So for this random week that I chose, my calendar looked like this. Other free time I would usually spend doing supervision like in the library or hanging out with friends. So it's always busy, but there is a lot of time to put towards things for fun. So first I'll tell you a bit about each of the supervisions and labs I had, and then I'll tell you more about extracurriculars and fun things to do in Cambridge. Supervisions for me, I think, are kind of what set Cambridge apart from other universities. They're kind of what Cambridge is known for, as not many other universities have them. It's small group teaching with between 1 and 3 students sitting down with an academic or a graduate student who's basically an expert in what you're studying. So Amy mentioned they're based off the interview, and I kind of agree, but I also don't, because I remember being very, very stressed during my interview and worried about what people would say and think about what I'm saying, whereas in a supervision, it is definitely, in my opinion at least, a lot more relaxed. It's just a chance for you to ask all of the questions you have about the lectures and the practicals you've done during that week, just to make sure that you understand what's going on. Or if you're really interested in a particular thing that was mentioned, you can ask for more detail about that. Usually you'll be set work. So for my biology modules, that would be an essay. And I hadn't really written an essay since GCSEs, so I was a bit worried about my essay technique. But the supervisors, as well as telling you about the actual content and the science behind things, they'll help you structure your essays and improve your exam skills and your ability to just think like a scientist, I guess. For chemistry and maths, usually it would be a problem sheet, and usually what I would do is just work through it and try and do as much as I can, and then get to the supervision and discuss it. At first, I tried to complete all of the work that I was set, and I'd spent quite a lot of time on it, but I've realised the work is actually there to challenge you and to stretch your ability to do things. So now I think it's easier to achieve a sustainable work-life balance by just doing your best and then being happy to go to the supervision and say, I tried this question, but actually I have no idea what's going on. Can we please go through it? It's important to remember that the supervisions are actually there to help you. So I think that's the best way to go about it. Another thing that's a big part of a natural science student's life is the practicals. As you can see from my timetable, they took up a lot of time, almost whole days sometimes, but they're actually really useful for developing skills that a scientist would need and really fun. I'd come to Cambridge never having really used proper scientific equipment before, so I was a bit worried, but they don't assume any kind of background. They'll teach you to use all the equipment, like the microscopes and the pipettes if you're doing like your classic biology or chemistry lab, or for maths there would be short between 1 and 2 hour coding sessions, and they'll also teach you all about the coding language that you're doing so that you can keep up with everything. Usually the practicals are also run parallel to the lectures, so they help you understand what you're learning that week as well. Okay, societies are probably the thing that people think about when you talk about extracurricular activities. There's a huge range of societies that you can join within your college or across the entire university. Sports is really big. You can either play just for fun, or you can play competitively within your college or to represent the university, which you probably hear about when they're playing against Oxford. There's a lot of sports like football, badminton, netball, even croquet I think is played at Downing, and rowing is also really big. There's also a lot of music in Cambridge, including orchestras and jazz bands. So you can see from the pictures here, we've got the Downing netball team, the rowing club and the jazz band. There's also cultural societies where you can meet up with people and just hang out through the year, or they'll put on events to celebrate festivals. So that top right picture there is the Cambridge India Stock put on an event to celebrate Holi, which was really fun. One of my favourite things I've gotten involved in though has to be theatre. I'd never really been involved in theatre before coming to Cambridge, unless we count my primary school nativity play, but we are not counting that. So these are some of the pictures that I've taken at the ADC Theatre, which is the student-run theatre in Cambridge. All of the productions are run entirely by students, whether that's acting on stage, in the pit band, whether you're backstage building sets, you're budgeting, designing posters, even writing plays sometimes. It's a lot of fun to get involved in, and by taking part I've learnt about stage managing and setting up lights and things I'd never done before and never thought I'd really have the opportunity to do. One of my favourite things I've done in Cambridge actually was get involved in the 23-hour sketch show. We met up at the theatre at midnight and were given a list of prompts, and then we had 23 hours to write a comedy show based off of it. By the end we were all very tired, but we made people laugh, so it was a lot of fun. I would definitely recommend, if you're coming to Cambridge or any university, getting involved in something that you've never done before, because there's so many societies out there that give you those opportunities. So the college system has been mentioned already. So like this is run by Downing and I study at Downing. The way I think about it is that a college is just a very small community where you live together, eat together and study together with the people in your college. I like it because it allows you to meet a lot of people from different subjects and different year groups, and it makes it feel like a big family. Each college has its own facilities and runs its own events, including Freshers Week. So I personally applied for Downing because I visited on the open day and I liked the atmosphere, the green space, and the fact that it's close to my lectures was a big plus. They're kind of niche reasons, I guess, but it all depends on what's important to you. Some people debate a lot about which college to apply for, but I would say don't worry too much about it because they're all really great. So these are some of my experiences of college life at Downing. The Downing Bar is probably a big hub for social activities in the evenings, so every couple of weeks there'll be jazz nights, there'll be quiz nights put on, and once a term there'll be a themed party where the bar is decked out in decorations. So the bottom right picture there shows a tropical themed event that we put on. Keith's Cafe is something that Downing is quite known for, I'd say, where every Thursday Keith, our college chaplain, will give out free tea, coffee and donuts on the chapel steps. As well as having free food, which everyone loves. It's an opportunity for all the students to leave the library or come out of their rooms and just chat to people through the college, especially when it's a really busy week and you're stressed. It's just a nice way to say hi to people who you wouldn't normally see. We also have some grass that you can walk on, which is quite rare in Cambridge. And when the weather's nice, people play sports or they'll have picnics out there. College families is another Cambridge tradition, and this one was quite weird, especially when I had to explain it to my real parents, that I now had parents at university. When you arrive, your college parents who are second years doing the same subject as you. So here's me with my college parents going punting during Freshers Week. Because they were in your position just 1 year ago, they know exactly what you're going through, and they're a great support when you're settling in, but also throughout your whole degree. Whether you want advice on how to study or what options you want to choose for the next year, they've been through it all, so they know what you're going through. And of course, when you move into second year, you'll get college married and you'll be given your own college children to give advice to. It's a nice cycle, and some people take it very seriously and draw giant college family trees. It's just a lot of fun. So yeah, when I was asked to talk about student life, I thought this would be very important to include because this is important to me, and that's food. Especially if you're living away from home for the first time. Downing is very flexible in terms of the food that's available. There are nice kitchens in all the accommodations where you can cook, and all of the Downing kitchens have ovens, which not many colleges actually do. So if that's important to you, I would look into it before you apply. If you don't cook or you just feel lazy, then that's okay too, because the dining hall serves lunch and dinner every day, and there's also brunch at the weekends. There's also the Butterfield Cafe, which serves paninis and coffees if you want to, just to keep you going throughout the day. And Downing is a really great location as well. There's a Sainsbury's just across the street, and because we're quite a central college, you can always go out and do your shopping, which is helpful. Formals are another, I guess, food event, and they're basically just really fancy dinners. It feels quite fancy because you dress up and there's candles and sometimes even a gong, but it's actually more relaxed than I expected. The first formal I went to was during Freshers Week, and I was worried because I didn't actually know what set of cutlery I'd be using, and it just felt a bit beyond me, like anything I'd ever experienced, but it was a lot of fun. They're put on a few times a week, and you book in advance to attend. I usually go just for special occasions like these, when I went on Halloween and at Christmas, or if a friend is visiting from outside of Cambridge and I want to give them the full Cambridge experience. It's a nice thing to do every once in a while, and it feels very special and like a thing that you can only actually do if you're in Cambridge. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about in terms of student life. But the last thing I want to say is that Cambridge sounds very larger than life, especially with its weird traditions, which I've talked about quite a bit today, but it's definitely what you make of it. Before I came to Cambridge, I thought it would be a lot like this. And actually, there is a lot of work and it is quite challenging, but it's important to remember that there are also a lot of other moments like this. You can definitely reach a healthy work-life balance and have a lot of fun at the same time. And I think that is definitely made possible by the amount of support that's on offer. There is always someone to turn to if you feel like you're struggling, whether that's in terms of the amount of work you have, money, or just life getting you down. So there's your tutor, your director of studies, the college nurse and counsellor, the student welfare officers, your family. There's always someone there to help you out. So studying at Cambridge can be challenging, but it's also really rewarding and a lot of fun. There's a lot of opportunities available to get involved in, and I think anyone could be a Cambridge student. So if you're really interested in your subject and you want to study here, then I would say go for it. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I hope you all found that really useful. If you've got any questions, please feel free to send those into the Q&A now, and the four of us will do our very best to answer those for you. So we've got a few already. While the talks have been going on, myself and a couple of the others have been answering a few of them. So do look at the answered questions on your Q&A box and see if your question has been answered or another question that you were thinking of asking, and we'll do our very best to get through as many as we can. So where shall we start? I think we'll start sort of admissions-y. Marta, do you have a better chance of getting in if you do 4 A-levels instead of 3 A-levels?
No, not really. The entry requirements are 3 A-levels, so that's all we ask of you. Obviously, if you were doing a 4th A-level, that will be taken into account as well, but it's in no way a requirement, and in no way does it give you a clear advantage. Great.
And on the same sort of topic, is further maths useful?
So it's not a requirement for any of your first year's subjects, so it's not directly useful in that sense. But for example, if an applicant is interested in carrying on studying pure mathematics in their first year, then it does give you an introduction to some of the topics covered.
Great, thank you. And similarly again, if a student is doing 2 sciences and psychology is their third option, does that make their application any weaker?
We usually say that the entry requirements are at least 2 of mathematics and sciences. Psychology isn't counted as a science in this case, so there is a preference for 3 out of mathematics and chemistry, biology and physics, but 2 out of those is enough, so you are still putting in a very strong application even if you're doing psychology. So again, it does not disadvantage you from the start.
And may I just chip in as well that there is another course which is psychological and behavioural sciences, which might be of interest if psychology is something that students are really interested in. So if you're thinking of possibly going down the psychological route through biological natural sciences, it's also worth having a look at the psychological and behavioural sciences tripos, and all of that information is up online as well, so you can have a look at the 2 courses and compare.
Great, and we'll be doing another one of these on the 12th of August for that course as well, if you wanted to join. Great, thank you. Amy, are there any opportunities for research or study abroad within the course?
So there are no, there's no kind of intercalated year, there's no sort of year abroad within natural sciences as there is for obviously subjects like languages, but what we do is to encourage all of our students to undertake work experience if possible, or lab placements in the summers. The summers are very long in Cambridge. There's sort of it's a 12-week break. There's plenty of time to be doing some lab experience and then also having a break before coming back to Cambridge as well. So where we can, we help with pointing people in the right direction for funding, pointing people in the right direction to find host labs and so on, where people may be able to go abroad and do some research away for a short period of time. But there's no sort of there's no opportunity for a whole year in industry, for example, as there are in some other universities.
Great, thank you. We've also had a couple of questions about kind of the biomedicine, which we were discussing before. Do you want to talk about the module that we think people are getting confused by, Amy?
Yeah, so I think it's just worth clarifying. So of course there is a separate tripos in Cambridge, which is the medical and veterinary sciences tripos. That's a completely different subject. It has a different pre-admissions test. So if you're thinking of medicine, then that's the subject that you will need to apply for. But within natural sciences, there is a course which is biological and biomedical sciences, or BBS, which is one of the final year specialisms that you can take. I say one of the final year specialisms. Essentially, all of the departments that offer final year specialisms that include a research project will also offer a version of that final year that doesn't include a research project, and that's biological and biomedical sciences. Instead of doing a research project, these students who are taking BBS do a dissertation, which is like a literature review, and they also take a minor option as well, and there's a whole wide range of minor options. That's a decision that people tend to make during their second year, so whether they want to go down the research single option route or whether they want to go down the biological and biomedical sciences route. But for the first 2 years, that course is exactly the same as all other biological natural sciences scientists would sit. The options are all exactly the same.
Perfect, thank you very much, Amy. Question for you, Sona. What would you say is the worst and the best thing about Downing?
Okay, so I'd say the best thing is the community feel. There's always events put on where you can meet up with other people throughout the college, and I really like that. The worst thing, gosh, I don't know. Maybe that during exam term, the library always gets very packed because it's not the biggest library that the college has, but I wouldn't say that's a disadvantage in any way because each college has their own library, which is quite small, but the university also has a bigger library and each department has their own department library with more specialised textbooks. So whenever I get a bit sick of the Downing library and walking in and feeling the stress coming off all the other students, I'll just walk right back out and find another place to study. Yeah, I'm not sure there's anything that I really don't like about Downing. I think being here is just, it's good.
Great, thank you. So I've got a question here about SUPER-CURRICULAR, which I think is based on what I was talking about before. If there's anything that we're particularly looking for in personal statements. What we're wanting to see is just your interests. So what are your interests and how that relates to the subject. And that will be different from somebody else's. So we're not looking for a specific set of criteria that things that you've ticked off. We're looking at what it is that you're interested in and kind of what you've done to develop that interest. And then we've also got question here. I might direct this at Amy. Are there any kind of field trip kind of opportunities in the course?
There are some field trip opportunities with some subjects. So I'm now blocking on the new name for evolution and behaviour. Marta, can you remind me? It's
in the first year? No,
yeah,
actually.
so just rename this course. It used
Yeah.
to be called evolution and behaviour.
Fresh next year, new name.
Yes, sorry, I'm blocking completely on the new name. So that has field courses which are normally organised over the Easter vacation, and those are to, well, probably not the most exotic of places, but they are quite fun. And then for some of the other subjects, so again, also recently renamed, but used to be called ecology, that has a field trip over the summer of the summer before that year starts, where students can go away to more exotic locations. So all of those field trip opportunities are detailed on the course website. So if those are subjects that you're interested in, it's worth taking a look on the Natural Sciences website, and you'll find details of the kinds of trips that are available for students taking those options.
Perfect, thank you. Oh, there it is. Sona, are formals within college or across colleges?
So each formal is organised within a college. So as a Downing student, I will always be able to book onto a formal at Downing, but that doesn't stop you from being able to go to formals at other colleges. So a few friends and I from different colleges arranged formal swaps where I can get them tickets for Downing and they can get me tickets for formals at other colleges. So they're organised within college, but you can go to other colleges because there are some differences in terms of the atmosphere and the food that they serve and things like that. So it's quite nice to get out and see other colleges as well.
Definitely. And you do make friends on your course with people who are from other colleges.
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like natural sciences actually allows for that more because of the labs. In lectures, when you get there, you have the 2 minutes before they start to speak to people, whereas with a lab, you're spending a good few hours every week speaking to the people around you who aren't always from your college. So I find it really fun to make friends like that.
Great, thank you. Marta or Amy, what sort of things do people do after the natural sciences course? So kind of careers. Obviously loads of things, but what?
You want me to start?
Why don't you start?
Yeah, it's really very wide range of jobs that people go on to do. So I'd say, I don't want to say if it's a third or, because it just varies so much every year, but a number of students will go on to do postgraduate degrees. So that will either be a master's by research, or some students go directly into PhDs. So obviously these are students who either know that they want to have a career in research, or who want to explore that possibility further. But then we also have lots of students going into jobs in pharmaceutical industry, in consultancy, sometimes related to biological topics. So it could be something to do with conservation, or some students completely cross all the way and do management consultancy. We've had students who join accountancy programs. So yes, pretty much everything and anything. It's very much about the skills that you are developing. And some students go on to apply those skills directly by working for example, in a lab in the pharmaceutical industry, while others take those skills and apply them to completely different aspects in industry. Recently, we had a student who went on to work on digital security. So yeah, literally so varied.
It's very, very varied, and it's worth saying that Cambridge has an excellent career service that helps you to work through sort of what sort of jobs might be the ones that are best suited, you know, that you're most interested in, that are best suited to you, and also the directors of studies will have this conversation with you throughout the degree and try to point you in the direction of opportunities where you can develop some of the skills that would be relevant to particular jobs when once you graduate. So if you want to go into, you know, science journalism, where are the opportunities to go and get some experience doing that as an undergraduate so you can build up your CV, you know, putting you in touch with people who have gone off in different directions. We have, a large range of contacts of old students now between us that we can often get advice from quite a wide range of careers if people are interested in any one specific thing. So the college and the university provide quite a lot of support in terms of working out what to do after graduation.
Perfect, thank you. Following on from that, Sona, you may not know, and that's okay if you're not sure, but what are you hoping to do after you finish? Do you have any ideas?
I have some ideas. I'm not 100% sure yet. One of the options I'm considering is pursuing a master's, because over the summer and for next year, hopefully I'll be able to do a project in a lab, and that will give me an idea of whether I want to carry on and pursue research. If not, I also am quite interested in science communication and science journalism through opportunities in Cambridge, like the student-run science magazine. I've been able to get involved in writing articles and editing, and I've really enjoyed that. So if not research, I'd probably look into that a bit more.
Great, sounds interesting. There were a few about the test, Marta. I'm just trying to find it now.
Yeah, I'm typing answers to a couple. So there's one, for example, asking about section 1. Are the multiple choice questions general or on a specific science? So in section 1, there are 4 subsections, if you like. One on basic mathematics, which focuses on assumed knowledge from GCSE mathematics, and that one is compulsory. And then the second half of section 1 will focus on a specific science, chemistry, biology, or physics, but you get to choose which one you want to answer.
And when can students start to register for it? Do you know when it opens? I'm not sure.
When it opens, I don't know, only when it closes, but very much the school, the contact person in the school is the person to ask that question to.
Yeah, and also the University of Cambridge website as well, if you just type it in and find it has more information about the tests on there as well. I just tried to look for it online, but I couldn't find the word limit for the SAQ personal statement. Does anybody know at all off the top of their heads?
Do you mind saying that again?
The word limit for the personal statement in the SAQ.
I don't know, but it's short.
Yeah,
I'd say it's about maybe a quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's short.
A quarter or a third of the personal statement limit is very short.
Yeah, so it's just an opportunity to add anything extra that you might not have been put in your main personal statement, because obviously that's going to 5 different universities. Yeah, it's like a paragraph, isn't it, sort of thing. Yeah. I'm not 100% sure on the actual word limit. Okay. So at interview, Marta, as you mentioned before, you kind of ask them kind of tailor who the interviewers might be. This student said, do you have any choice in what subject is discussed at interview? If you apply to biological natural sciences but would like to study chemistry alongside biology, is there any way of putting this across before the interview?
Well, you can pass on the information, for example, in the SAQ. You are always free to email the admissions office if there is anything that you want to make sure the interviewers know. but we will put together the panels to make sure we cover a range of subjects, because that's what you are coming here to do, to study natural sciences. So the only thing you can do really to influence what panels you get is to tell us whether you're applying for biological or physical natural sciences in the SAQ. So we do have slightly different panels, still covering a range of sciences. So for example, if you tell us you will, you're applying for biological natural sciences, we will definitely be asking you about biology and different aspects, like I said, some quantitative questions, maybe draw a graph or something like that, and a little bit of chemistry for sure as well. If you apply for the physical sciences, you will probably have a physicist in the panel, but you don't get to choose effectively who interviews you or what sort of questions are asked.
Great, thank you. I hope that answers the question. I'm going to aim this question at Sona. The question is, what's the biggest challenge for first year natural science students? But kind of what did you find as the biggest challenge, I think is a better question.
I think for me, I found the biggest challenge was time management, because the amount of content covered at university and the way that it's delivered is very different to what I'd experienced at A-levels. For example, in lectures, there is a lot of content and they go through it very quickly and you have to keep up with it, and if you fall behind, then of course that's okay, but then you have to make time to go over it again in your own time. And you could see from my timetable that I showed earlier that there are a lot of contact hours, and you need to be able to fit in extracurriculars that you want to do for fun, as well as be able to meet your deadlines for supervision work. And I definitely struggled with that at first, but I think you kind of get into the rhythm of things, and as I mentioned earlier, you don't need to put crazy demands on yourself and stay up all night. I very quickly learned to prioritize that I need to make sure I get a good amount of sleep, that I need to make time to cook myself good food, and if that meant I couldn't finish my math bio supervision work, then I know that Marta wouldn't mind when I got to the supervision. Yeah, I'd say time management, but I think being in the middle of things, you very quickly learn to keep on top of it.
Great, thank you. So we had a couple of questions about EPQ. Obviously, Sona mentioned that she did one, and kind of whether it's a good thing to do. It is a good thing to do, but if you don't do one, you're not at any disadvantage, I think would be my stance from the admissions office. Amy and Marta, would you have anything to add on the EPQ discussion?
I think there's the EPQ, and there's some people asking about whether there's an advantage to doing a fourth A-level subject or an additional AS. So all of those things are above the basic entry requirements, so they do not give you any direct advantages in any way. However, there are ways of further exploring your subject sciences, so they could help you put together your personal statement, for example, but again, there is no direct advantage, no extra points given to any of those extras, if you like.
Yeah, great, thank you. Yeah, you might find the EPQ a good way to do some super-curricular activities,
Yeah.
but you do not need to do that. You can just do your own project if you wanted to, without it kind of being in a mark setting. Question for me, so personal statements, I said 2/3 academic, and what is the other third? The other third is about you, and to show us that you are a real person, so what your interests are, and things that you would like to kind of do at university. So you can mention kind of sports that you might want to continue or anything like that. It's just to kind of show us who you are as a person, but we are not we're not asking you to have those things. We will be looking much more at the academic side of things and your academic interests. So a question here about what support is available to help students manage their workload and mental health. Amy, am I right to pass that on to you?
Yeah, I'm sure we can all speak to it. So we appreciate that Cambridge is hard work, and it's, terms are, they're only 8 weeks, but they're full on. and it's a marathon. So we like to think of ourselves as kind of your marathon support team. You have a lot of people in college who are there to give you support. Director of studies, tutor, the chaplain, the college nurse. The university is very, very aware of issues of student mental health and doing as much as possible to help with that, and colleges following suit as well. So I think, you know, the directors of studies, and not just in Downing, I think across colleges, people are aware that, you know, it is about balance, and you're advised in terms of, you know, yes, you have to prioritize your workload, but you also need to have other things as well that allow you to decompress and to put things into perspective, as well as taking time to get enough sleep and cook yourself good food, as Sona was saying. So we do take mental health very, very seriously, and you know, we provide as much support as we can. I mean, Marta, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, yeah, I think that's all covered. Yeah, and yeah, between directors of studies and students, second years, etc. There's lots of support and advice in the colleges.
And it's probably worth adding as well that if there are any sort of more serious mental health problems that students would need professional support for, we do have a college counsellor and we do have the university counselling service available. So if there are sort of clinical needs that need to be met, then the university does also have, and college has provision to help with those as well.
Thank you. So I guess this is another question for me about kind of personal statements. So saying that quite a few of you have had your kind of work experience or kind of any trips or anything that you were planning to do cancelled because of coronavirus. You won't be the only one in that case. Lots of people are in that situation. Do let us know if you had something planned. And even if you had done it, what we are looking at is what you learned from that opportunity rather than what you did. So have a look at what else you can do and other things that you can do from home, and things, you know, like this are super curricular. So, you know, try and put those sort of things in instead. Obviously it's a very different year to other years, but if there was something that you had lined up ready to go and you really want to tell us about, then you can put that on your extenuating circumstances and let us know that you had it planned and why you had it planned. So what was your interest behind that? Sona, how would you rate the accommodation at Downing?
The accommodation at Downing is really, really nice. I would say I've speaking to friends from other colleges and visiting their rooms. I would say that Downing is definitely at the upper end in terms of how nice the accommodation is, but that does mean that it can be more expensive compared to other colleges. But I know that people don't usually complain when in first year they've got a room with a double bed. It really depends on what the priority is for you. But in terms of funding, there are always support systems in place, like the Cambridge bursary and college bursaries as well, depending on the college available.
Yeah, and on that topic, as you brought it up, yeah, there's loads of funding available. So there's a question about kind of funding field trips and other things like that. Please do not be put off by cost. That would hate for you not to apply because you're worried about cost. The university has systems in place, the colleges have systems in place to support you, and there's lots of different funds that you can apply for, like sports funds and trip funds and all sorts of different things. You just have to ask, so please do make sure you do that and don't let that be a worry or a concern. So yeah, that's definitely worth mentioning. Thank you for that. I think, unless there was another question that anyone else has seen that we definitely should answer, we are running out of time. Just trying to scan them. Yeah, I think because of time, what we will do is thank you all for your questions. If I haven't had time to get to your question, you should all have my email address because I've been emailing you about the webinar. So please send me an email with your question if we haven't answered it and you would like to have it answered, and I can always forward that on to Marta or Amy and Sonna if it's something that they can comment on. But I think to finish, if each of you would like to say kind of a piece of advice or kind of final word to the students who are interested in applying. So for Sonna, kind of when you were in year 12, what would you have liked to have heard from a Cambridge student? On the spot.
I think I would say be yourself. Because I know that there are stereotypes kind of associated with Cambridge, and when I went to my interview, when I was writing my personal statement, I was kind of like, oh, what should I write to make people think that I should belong in Cambridge and I would fit in Cambridge? And actually that doesn't really matter at all. You don't need to dress up, you don't need to sound posher than you normally speak. I think as long as you have an interest in your subject and you're really genuine about that, then your interviewers will see that and the people reading your personal statement will see that.
Brilliant, thank you. Amy, any advice for the students?
I think I'd echo what Sonna said, that really we are interested in seeing your enthusiasm and the way that you think and your potential, and we don't care about background, we don't care what type of school you've been to. You know, we're interested in you and how you think and how you will make the most of the opportunities that this course provides you. So, you know, apply, because you won't get in if you don't apply. So I'd encourage you to take the opportunity.
Brilliant, thank you. Marta, anything else to add?
Perhaps just something that was coming up in a number of the questions, and we said in the beginning that we can't answer any questions specifically related to how COVID-19 is going to affect what's happening. But when writing your personal statement, we understand, obviously, we all know what's been going on in the world, so we all know that work experiences have been cancelled. Places you were hoping to go, you're not going to be able to go. So everybody's aware of that, so don't worry about it. All you have to do is show your interest in your subject and that you have explored that interest. There are plenty of lectures and resources and podcasts and whatever available online that you can still use to make sure that you demonstrate that supercurricular interest. So please do not worry about it. It's not like this just is affecting you. The whole world knows what you're going through. So it will be taken into account and everybody will be in the same boat.
Perfect, thank you so much. So I think there's two things left for me to say. The first is a massive thank you to Marta, Amy and Sonna for joining us this afternoon and for answering all your questions. So really big thank you, and I'm sure all the students are really grateful for your time as well. And then as you exit the webinar, it's going to ask you to be redirected to an online survey. That is a feedback survey. And so if you wouldn't mind filling that in, it should only take 5 minutes. Give us some feedback on how you found the webinar. These are the first set of webinars that we've ever run, so it's really useful for us to know how they work and what you would have liked and what you didn't like and all of that, so we can improve them in the future. But thank you all for joining us, and thank you to my panelists as well. Have a good afternoon, everybody. Thank you.